just record on this computer. Okay, looks like the recording is good to go. I will keep an eye on if people join in, and if not, that's why we're recording this presentation. So
sounds good. All right, this is our VITA Intake training for the 2021 season, and we're going to go ahead and get started. A handful of things on our agenda tonight, just having everybody introduce themselves, an overview of VITA, talking about our security standards, serving for participants, what's in an intake, tax return submission paths, so the different ways that tax returns are coming into our system this year, Zendesk, which is the software we'll be using to manage returns, and then your certification homework and next steps. So starting off, there's just a few of us, but we're going to go ahead and have you introduce yourselves, and you can tell us how many years you've been doing VITA, and then you could tell us if you could instantly become an expert in something, what it would be. So I will go first. This is my second year. You all know my name, and if I could instantly become an expert in something, today I think it would be time management, because I feel like I cannot complete all the things that are on my list and it keeps getting longer.
well, I can feel free to go after Emma. So for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Patrick. I'm one of the AmeriCorps service members who's serving with United Way of Washtenaw County for most of this year and all of VITA season. So one thing I'd like to become an expert in, similar to not time management, thankfully, everything did get done today, but I think I'm worried about tonight, man, if I could just have like an off switch and just go to sleep instantly, like once this stuff is done, and just wake up 8 hours from then and have like a nice full day. That just feels like it would be really great these days. So probably a weird one, but just expert in falling asleep and waking up on time.
I can go next. I'm Laura Seyfried. I'm the director at the Community Resource Center in Manchester, and we've been partnering with United Way for many years to provide VITA service at our Manchester site. And I guess I'll just like go way out there. I would love to be able to teach people common sense. I just think we could solve a lot of issues around the world. You do that. So that's always been my dream. Maybe someday.
Well, I'm next. My name is Monica Pedrosa, and this will be my 4th year working with VITA. And if I could instantly become an expert in something, that would be maybe how to politely manage all my colleagues in India about working faster and with less mistakes, because at this point I'm struggling with that. That's it.
Hi, I'm Julia. This is my first year doing VITA. I'm another AmeriCorps service member, so I'm a VITA baby. I was gonna say sleep too. I don't know how people do it. It takes me like, I have improved, and now it only takes me like 30 minutes to fall asleep, and I'm very proud of myself. But my partner just puts his head on the pillow and like, forget about it, he's gone, and I'm just so jealous here. And I always wake up in the middle of the night, or I sleep in a weird position, I wake up in pain. And if not an expert in sleep, then I would like want to have multiple language. Like I want to be a polyglot. I have 2 languages, and I've been feeling that that's not enough for the past 6 months for what I want in my life. Like,
am I off mute?
You are, yes.
Yeah. I'm Bob, and I've been with VITA for, I think it's over 10 years now. And, you know, I've worked with Laura for many, many years. And so I don't think there's anybody that's really an absolute expert. So don't worry about being an expert on anything. Every year I learn something new, every year.
That is true.
It just never stops. It's in the nooks and crannies of federal and state taxes.
The best
You
advice.
learn something.
All right. Patrick, is this you?
All me. Okay.
away.
Well, as this is intake training, I figure we'll start off with just a really brief overview of what do the volunteers on our intake team actually do. First and foremost, the main responsibility is to review all tax document submissions that we're going to be gaining, just to make sure that everything looks correct, everything is in order, nothing's missing before it moves on to one of our other volunteers to actually begin preparing the client's taxes. On top of that, our intake team is going to be responsible for communicating with not only the actual clients who are going to be going directly through our virtual VITA program, but as well as our Scan and Go partner agencies, of whom Laura is representing one, to make sure to complete intake, fill out any missing information that we have, or try to answer any questions either from our end as we're looking at the intake documentation, or if the taxpayer/client has any questions about the process kind of coming in. We do also really want to emphasize that our intake team are going to be the first actual humans who our clients are going to hear from during this process. So with this being a 90% virtual model, I think it's really more important than ever to really try to make our clients feel welcome, to make them feel supported, to make sure they're heard. And this can be a really daunting process, even for some of our clients who are super familiar with technology, and this may not be overwhelming for them. A lot of our client base doesn't really fit into that description. So it's going to be extra important for them. Okay, so you have to excuse me, my notes are on my phone. Normally I have a second full screen, but my fiance, who's also working, won the argument for that tonight. So as I go through my smaller notes, here we go. Right, I mentioned virtual VITA and Scan and Go. So these are essentially the two kind of pathways the client can go through for how we're handling returns this year. So virtual VITA, pretty straightforward. A client's going to be able to answer any questions we have, mostly about eligibility, and then upload both their intake form and any other tax documentation from a smartphone, tablet, computer, whatever, doesn't matter. Essentially, we just give them a secure portal that they can go through and give us that, and it's very independent. Scan and Go is a lot different. We have a handful of Scan and Go sites. As of right now, we do have people sign up for appointments with us at United Way of Washtenaw County. We're partnering for this year with the Housing Bureau for Seniors, the Manchester Community Resource Center, and then SOS Community Services. Hopefully maybe one or two more we'll kind of see as we're getting close to season. What Scan and Go is essentially is, after answering the same kind of eligibility questions, a client's going to book an appointment at one of these physical locations. They'll be able to go in. They'll be mailed their forms ahead of time so they can have everything filled out, and they come in, hopefully just do sort of a quick review, make sure most things look in order. Then one of these partner sites will scan in the documents and let the client go. And it's just kind of a different way. Virtual VITA, basically, we're going to be getting documentation directly from the taxpayer. So intake's going to be extra important for all of those clients. And in Scan and Go, there is just, another step in between where we're going to be communicating more directly with a partner agency as opposed to directly with the client. Speaking of some of those eligibility questions, right, we should go over the basics for who's VITA for. So a couple key.
Patrick?
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that the Scan and Go process is going to be more accurate, and I don't think that's the case at all. When a person brings their documents in, I mean, we experience it all the time. They're not going to have everything. Mm-hmm. They're just not. And they're not going to have their 13614C done correctly. And
pessimist.
That's just not going to happen. So, when they come to the United Way office and they put their stuff in a bin outside the door and you guys go in and scan it, you're going to have a level of capability to see that it really is all there, and not just scan it.
Well, thankfully, that is why everything goes through the intake process, regardless of where it comes from. So I think kind kind of what I'm alluding to there is some of our scan and go partners, do anticipate kind of calling the clients beforehand and hopefully talking them through some things. Not everywhere is going to be able to do that, of course. And, everything has to go through this process anyway. So double, triple, quadruple checking.
What concerns me about this drop-off system, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a good thing to have, is we're not going to get they're going to drive their car up to the United Way window or to Laura in Manchester or wherever it is, and they're not going to have it all. They're just not.
I mean, but the truth is that's no different than regular VITA, right? We have many clients who show up without everything. So
it's absolutely, it's absolutely a huge problem. And at least with JOT form, they have the ones that do it totally virtually, we have the chance to have them go find it and add it to the upload without having to re-drive back into the physical location. Anyway, yep, okay.
Yeah, and I think we're aware, at least one, I think we go into this later, but at least we can't do anything to prevent someone who has a scan and go appointment, they forget a document, right? They are going to have to go back. That's kind of end of story. At least we do require a phone number so that we can communicate directly with them. So when we do have something missing, the intake team can call the taxpayer.
Well, let me ask you this, because when they were coming in the old days before the pandemic, we really worked hard on training the person on the phone to go down the list, make sure they had everything. You make sure, they would coach them to make sure in the process that we're going to on this drop-off system, are we going to have some interaction with the client to make sure they have everything? Or are we going to just say, huh?
All of our people who do drop off are intake certified. So that's, all of our scan and go partners, and then Julia and I. So it'll be the same as any other scan and go service. It's just,
Well, but what I'm asking is, so let's say a person schedules a time on a certain day to bring their stuff in. Is there any interaction with that client before that, going through the list of things they have to bring in?
Oh, yeah.
I know Laura's planning to do that. And we have a couple other places who are planning to. We aren't currently, but if we find that goes poorly for us, we can change it. But they will have instructions that are mailed to them, a list of documents to bring. And they will also have the VITA helpline. So anybody who needs more help can call.
Well, I can tell you, before the pandemic, what was her name? She was really good. Over the last few years, we've had somebody that really coached them through the list before they came in, physically to a live clinic. Now they're just coming in to drop off documents. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're not having that conversation. They're just coming in,
So this is a little bit more of an issue or I guess like something that should be addressed by our scan and go partners. 80% of whom aren't here because they have a separate training actually for tomorrow morning. So, okay. Well, I think these are definitely valid concerns, right?
So, back to my initial point at the very beginning, if we miss a few documents, the preparer will just have to figure out a way to get them. But it's better, obviously, it's always better if we get everything up front.
Yes.
The more we get, the more complete it is, the better it is.
Bob, in Manchester, and I'm not going to say that this is going to work perfectly or that we're going to be doing it exactly like we did before, because in the past we have been able to work with our clients in advance and make sure they had the documents. But for sure this year, for anybody that's been to our site before, they're going to get an invitation letter to schedule to get their taxes done through VITA. It's going to also include the 13614 intake form. It's going to have the list of documents to bring. We're going to mail those out just to everybody or hand them if they're coming to our office to pick up food. But they're going to have that in hand. And then on there will be, if you have any questions about the items, call our office. And we won't, we're going to make it clear that we're not going to schedule to do the intake with them over the phone. unless we have all the documents. And then we're certainly not going to upload any documents if it's not complete.
Mhm.
So we're gonna try to hold back the information until we know that we have everything that's needed before Mary Ann, our volunteer, and I actually upload it to United Way. So I hope
See, that sounds good.
that
That
will
really sounds
help.
good.
But we realize that it is going to be a little different just because we're not going to have that face-to-face with folks.
Let us save this for a scan and go conversation and move on with the intake.
Yeah, but I think these are, good points to keep in mind, for when we have that conversation in the future.
So you haven't been through this before, Patrick and Julia. One of our biggest issues has always been people don't have their documents. It's a huge source of inefficiency in live clinics. Probably our biggest source of inefficiency is people not having all their documents and all the information. It seems to a lot of us that are, trying to make as much hay out of this virtual process. One of the big opportunities is to get the documents up front because it's virtual. They're not showing up at a live clinic with half a loaf, which happens, I'd say, with just about every other client. And you end up with follow-up lists, those huge follow-up lists that we've always had. And, it just gets into a mess. So the more work and more effort and more thought we put into getting as complete a set of documents and information as we can, the better the clinic's going to run this year. That's all I'll say then. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think it's all very important.
It's okay. Speaking of, before anyone can even upload documents, right? No matter which way they want to go. And just so our intake team's aware, there's a few basic eligibility things for whether or not someone can receive, services through VITA. So number one, their annual household income has to be under 57,000. That's up from 56,000 last year. Everyone in their household has to have either a social security number or an I-10, an individual taxpayer identification number. And that's, spouse, children, doesn't matter. Everyone is going to be listed on the return. So any dependents. VITA can cover families, individuals, retirees, people who are employed, unemployed, self-employed. Any combination of the three, doesn't really matter. And I think we're expecting a lot more kind of combinations this year and people going through different situations of everything that occurred in 2020. We can also handle folks who are filing, in our case, Michigan only returns for specific credits. And as well, we can do prior year tax returns, or if someone needs a return amended, a good chunk of that's going to be deprioritized during tax season, because our focus is really going to be on obviously 2020 taxes, but there will still be a little bit. I expect we'll see some 2017 because that deadline for filing for a refund is coming up in April. We'll probably see some 2019 from last year, but our focus is hopefully mostly on 2020. If someone doesn't meet some of these requirements, there are other resources we can direct them to. First off is going to be My Free Taxes. This is going to be for people who are outside that household income bracket. So this would be up for people who have an income under 66,000. So to give a little more wiggle room there. Taxpayers that are comfortable trying to file things on their own or have fairly simple returns. If this is just someone who lived in one place, had one job all year, maybe just given how life works today, probably like a student loan interest form, right? Not too much. That's something that could probably be handled on their own. And there is some level of, technological familiarity that goes with being able to go through this process as well. If someone really can't get an appointment, I don't see this being as big of an issue this year, considering we're offering, primarily the virtual VITA model that is kind of flexible on when they actually upload their documents. They can do it from home. And I think people who are comfortable going through My Free Taxes are going to be, hopefully pretty comfortable handling that. As well as if someone doesn't have the proper documentation required for VITA. So if someone doesn't have a social security card, if someone is self-employed, but maybe doesn't have any actual documentation for their income or expenses, right? That would be something that we couldn't do through traditional VITA, but potentially they can use My Free Taxes. And again, you always have to note if someone disagrees with our preparation, whether that's the process, if someone says, they don't want their taxes done by a volunteer, not realizing, there are volunteers like Bob, more than, many other places you could go. But it is something we do have to make a note of, that this is a possibility. If just someone says, they don't want to go through the process, this is something else that they could use. Emma, you may be better suited to answer this question. Laura put in, does anyone know if you can use a tablet or iPad to use myfreetaxes.com? I've never looked at it on mobile, so I don't know.
I think that you should be able to. I haven't checked on mobile, but I seem to recall that's part of their advertising.
Okay, something we can double check, but we'll tentative yes as an answer to that. Okay, so how someone make an appointment, right? So whether they want to go through virtual VITA or scan and go, they can either call 211. We did some training with a couple 211 members last week, and they have a schedule that's all ready to go. You can also, clients can just do self-scheduling online at our website, either uwgive.org/free tax help. You could also do UW Washtenaw, but this is shorter, so like that URL. There's a big orange button right at the top center of the screen, schedule like my free tax appointment. That will let them go through a form that will ask them all the eligibility questions, and they kind of let them pick a date and a time. They'll also get email, text, mailing reminders. If they sign up for Scan and Go, they're going to get mailed their documents, right? So that's going to be a big reminder on top of the actual documents to fill out. We'll get sent things like, our what to bring checklist, right? Which is also going to get emailed to people as well. We really want to make sure people see that. That's also available at the website. They can also opt into some extra reminders to our scheduling system, things that'll really give them a buzz or an alert 24 hours before. What are they asked to provide? Number one, photo ID for all taxpayers. So if this is a married filing jointly return, both the taxpayer and the spouse are going to have to provide photo ID. If it's someone who's single, had a household, something like that, just their photo ID is okay. But we are going to need social security cards for every member of the household. So that's everyone on the tax return. Or again, if this is someone who has, an I-10 instead of a social security number, we'll, basically need the card providing that as well. So again, I mentioned the what to bring, so they're going to get mailed email to them, and it's going to be available online, which kind of lists off a lot of the most common tax documents and things they could check for, as well as, we mentioned we're saying out the federal intake form, as well as also the, state of Michigan intake reform, which for a Scan and Go appointment, they'll need to bring those in filled out ahead of time. Okay. We should mention there are a few things that were just considered out of scope. Normally, these are like above restrictions on what a volunteer, is allowed to prepare, right? So here's a few kind of red flags that could potentially jump out, if you're on the intake team and you're reviewing a document submission, if you see some of these things for anyone who's self-employed, if they have cost of goods sold or an inventory, if their total self-employed business expenses are over $25,000 for the year, that's going to be out of scope. If their method of accounting is not cash, that's something we can't do, as well as if their business use of home. So if their home is being used as their business, that's an issue as well. A few other income things. If they have income either from property rental or farming, again, if that income's over $57,000, and then if they have a 1099K form, this is something that's often out of scope. This is probably one that you would want to either ask our, someone on the intake lead or the VITA team specifically about, but more often than not, it's going to be a situation that's out of scope. few other things that are a little bit less common. If someone's a minister who can't do their taxes, also if someone is a professional gambler who's using Schedule C, can't do it. If someone has alimony from a pre-1980, if someone is, I should also say, receiving alimony for a pre-1985 divorce, I should be really specific there. There's also a whole list in the Pub 4012, page 5-15. You can also just search with Control F for the word out of scope, and you'll see all that stuff and some more on a pretty long list, which is a decent, reference to have. You see someone and you're really not sure. So to be an intake volunteer, there are some certifications you have to go through. Everyone from intake is going to have to go through 2 multiple choice exams that are 10 questions each. So the first one is the volunteer standards of conduct, and the second is the intake/exit and quality review exam. They're pretty straightforward and basic questions that are mostly about VITA ethics and basic procedures. You're going to get a follow-up email with a few short readings and instructions on how you can take those exams. They shouldn't be difficult for any of you. It should go pretty quick once you have the actual materials. And then once you pass them, you'll need to upload your signed volunteer agreement to us. Again, we'll give you some instructions on how to do that. That's going to be required before you can actually start volunteering. So today is January 12th. Our season starts on Monday, February 1st. So we have 2.5 weeks to kind of go through 20 multiple choice questions and uploading a form, which we're hoping should be enough time for all of you. But life can get busy and hectic, so if things come up, just kind of communicate with us as we're getting close to season. If you maybe there's one multiple choice question you really can't get, or maybe you misplaced the instructions on how to upload your agreement to us. All right, we can just help you knock it out before we get to February. Speaking of other things you'll have to do, you'll have to sign a security agreement that basically just says you agree to the following, right? That you are going to be using a private, password-protected internet connection. Not like you can really go anywhere public anyway, but if you could, don't do this at the library, at a coffee shop, whatever, at home on a secure network. That you are going to be preparing and reviewing all returns in private where others can't see your screen. That you're going to be using secure passwords for Zendesk and TextLayer, that they're not written down or easily accessible. And then also at the end of your session, you're going to be deleting any taxpayer documents. If you have any on your actual computer or device, you want to clear those off. Again, this is just all really in the interest of protecting client information, and these are pretty clearly laid out by the IRS. Okay, and last kind of thing is, so I mentioned the season starts Monday, February 1st. So when can you actually volunteer? Well, we're all working from home and it's virtual. So short answer, kind of whenever, right? Everyone's availability and schedules are going to be kind of up in the air. And kind of right now we have things are sort of TBD. We're going to try to be really flexible. If you feel like you can crank out reviewing some documents Monday morning, great, that lets things go. But if you can do, Wednesday afternoon, Friday evening, Thursday morning, whatever, just kind of let us know. And I also understand things are going to be different week to week, day to day. We're going to talk about this a little more over the next 2 weeks amongst our intake team, and especially once we get everyone into Zendesk on hopefully January 20th and 21st. This is something that we'll kind of figure out and nail down over the next week or two.
This is me, isn't it?
This is you. I appreciate you. I guess I highly doubt it, but if there are any questions on some of the really basic stuff we went through, you can feel free to either, I know we have some things in the chat, which we'll take a look at now. Oh, good news. Thank you, Laura.
All right, just a handful of notes on customer service if there's no questions. I guess I just breezed right over that. My brain is just going. All right. What things that our participants want: an error-free tax return, a pleasant and stress-free experience, free service that is accurate and secure, and assistance when they need it. So we just try to be really conscious of why people are coming to us, what they need, and what they're hoping for. We try to greet all of our participants in a friendly manner, introducing ourselves by our first name. So always making sure that they know who we are. That's become even more important with the virtual because they can't see us. They can't come into a location they know is a VITA location. You know, we're just someone on the end of their phone, into their email. So making sure that we're affirming, my name is Emma. I'm a VITA volunteer. I will be doing the intake of your tax return to make sure everything is here before a tax preparer starts on it. So just helping to create that sense of security.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Have you given any thought to assigning preparers that perhaps did the prior year return so they at least know the person? I know that would add a little layer of administrative workload, but
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
don't know if it's even doable.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work administratively, but it would be really nice to do. Yeah. So providing explanations about what you're doing whenever possible. So again, just explaining, I'm the person preparing your taxes. I'm the person reviewing your taxes. Making it clear maybe why you're asking for information. If you're calling someone, not just saying like, hey, did you get divorced last year? But, hey, this isn't clear on your intake form. I need to know if you got divorced last year so I can figure out your filing status. So just giving that context. Talking to them about their tax credits and deductions. This is more for tax preparers than for intake. But if you are asking for additional information, they're asking why, just letting them know that having all the documents and information does tie back into those tax credits. And then checking to see if they have any questions prior to transitioning them. This says to the exit specialist, but just to the next person on the chain. So if you're on the phone talking with them, just making sure that you're giving them a chance to also get all their questions answered. My computer does not want to advance. This is getting really problematic. Okay. Handling complaints or problems. The key thing to keep in mind here is that this is not your responsibility. You are a volunteer, you are providing a free service on your own time. And it is something that's very, very valuable and that we appreciate. So, if you're talking to somebody who's frustrated, some common examples would be like if they expected to get a larger refund or they owe more than they anticipated, or if they end up being out of scope after starting, just remain calm. Remember that this is not, even when they're frustrated or if it feels like they're attacking you, it is not your fault or responsibility. Acknowledge their complaint with empathy, and then take action to make things right. So really just handing it over to us. This is not your responsibility to deal with, but saying, this is really frustrating. I can tell you're upset and I want to make sure this gets resolved however possible. And so I'm going to have, a United Way staff member reach out to you and take care of this. So just pass that on to us as soon as possible. Client privacy, we also think about the language that we use. So when we're doing tax prep, we learn a lot about a person's circumstances in the last year. That includes things like divorce, loss of a job, or housing instability. So we want to be respectful about these circumstances and ensure that participants feel their privacy is being respected. This is a little easier this year since we're not in a live clinic, but considering the volume of your conversation, thinking about what you're sharing with other volunteers or staff members, and being sensitive about the personal things revealed in an interview. So just be aware that sometimes it can be hard for people to talk about these things and they can get a little emotional. And so, just accepting and working through that with them. And then thinking about the language you use to describe someone's financial situation. For example, someone who did not have income last year and therefore doesn't need to file a federal return. That could be something they're really sensitive about. It could be a hard subject if they've lost their job, especially this year. So just being very conscientious. Onward. There we go. And then the security goes on with the tax documents as well. These contain a lot of sensitive information, so we should make sure that they are always secure. We never leave documents downloaded to our computers. We don't leave any browser windows open with taxpayer information on it if you're not at your computer. So if you're going to go take a coffee break or whatever, log out of your software or log out of your laptop when not in use. And then the documents should never be viewed by anyone who's not a certified VITA volunteer. So if you're on a laptop or computer that other people in your home use, maybe set up your own user login that you can log out of. All right, moving on to the actual intake. So just remembering that you're the first point of contact for United Way, and we want to create a warm and welcome environment. That's especially important this year in our virtual process because, you know, it is a little bit less human contact and human relationship. So just being really friendly, you know, being very conscientious of what people might need to know or have answered. Reviewing everything before you call the taxpayer to make sure that it's all been included. It saves time for everybody and ensures a smooth process. So looking through the intake form and all the documents, noting down questions you might have, and then calling the taxpayer at the end. And then again, making sure you identify who you are. So intake is the first step in assuring an accurate tax return. It is all the information that's submitted to us before it's handed to a tax preparer. So this is kind of the first check to make sure that we have everything we need. That includes our taxpayer ID and social security cards, which are checked at every step of the process. And once it's done, the return is assigned to a tax preparer. All taxpayers have to provide valid ID for the adults on the return. That can be the state driver's license, a state ID card, or a passport. And then everyone on the return, including dependents, must provide a social security card, SSA 1099, or ITIN. Now there is some important information about identification. This year, we are able to do returns for anybody who is a citizen or resident alien. And so it's just important to be able to identify whether or not they, you know, if you know for certain that they are. If someone has an unrestricted social security card, which is just one that just shows their number, no text above it, they're either a US citizen or a green card holder, which means they're a resident alien and we can prepare their taxes. If they have a social security card that has any text on the top that says something like valid for work only or not valid for employment, we have to do what's called a substantial presence test to determine if they are a resident or non-resident alien. Some people will know this right off the bat. If you say, do you pass the substantial presence test? They will know yes or no. Other people will need to be walked through it. So if there's any sort of ambiguity, that's something you can definitely contact VITA staff for. We'll take a couple looks at some flow diagrams about how to determine this on the next couple slides, and you'll kind of understand why. And then if they have a ITIN, we also need to do the substantial presence test, which looks kind of like this. There's a big flow chart. So it starts by, you know, the top one is just, did you have a green card? If yes, they're permanent resident. If no, were you physically present in the United States for the last 31 days during the current tax year? If yes, were you present at least 183 days during the 3-year period consisting of the current tax year and the preceding 2 years, counting all days of the current tax year? So it goes on, and there are multiple steps. So if you look at this and you're like, I am not comfortable making this assessment with somebody, hand it off to us. It's also important because there are different regulations for students, teachers, and trainees who are on specific visas, where even if they pass this test, they may not qualify. And so there's another sort of flow chart here for that as well. So again, reach out to us. Don't feel like you have to do this. All right, checking the documents. Where are these documents coming from? They either come from JotForm or our Scan and Go partners. So they will appear slightly different, but you will get the same essential components. You'll have a taxpayer ID and social security card, a completed intake sheet, a Michigan intake sheet, and then all the documents associated with their answers on the intake. So this form is required for every person. It is needed in order to complete an accurate return, and it is one of the reasons that VITA programs have a high accuracy rate. Nationally, I think it's like 93 or 94%. We are closer to 96 or 98. So we're very thorough. Every tax return that's submitted will have an intake form. Every question must be answered. Even if it's a no, it should be marked no. And then anything that's marked yes, the person should be submitting the document that is listed for that question. So for most things on the intake sheet, it will tell you exactly what should be included if you have answered yes. And these are the only forms that are acceptable. So if somebody has put in something else instead, like their paycheck stubs instead of their W-2, it is not going to work. If there's not a specified document listed, look to see if there's at least something that's been attached for that item. For example, tip income, it could be listed on a W-2, but it's also something that people can track themselves in a notebook, spreadsheet, or a tip report. So, you know, if they marked yes, just making sure there's some sort of documents related to tips. a look at our intake sheet this year. It has not changed a lot from last year. You just have the same identifying information on the first page as well as information for the dependents. Anything for any dependents should be filled out across to here, the totally and permanently disabled. The rest is completed by our tax preparers. On the second page, you see these questions that we just talked about, and on almost every one, the notation of what form they should include. When you are looking through these, if you see any that are marked unsure, those are ones you would want to talk with the taxpayer about and try to see if you can with them get to a yes or no answer. You know, if they put down maybe or unsure for unemployment, and you talk with them and they say, well, you know, I got some money from a local nonprofit to help me pay bills while I was unemployed. Okay, that's not unemployment. So that's something else. It's not, it doesn't have to be tracked this way. Just, you know, working with them, talking with them to determine if it should be included or not. The only thing that's changed on here is that you now also have a question asking whether or not they've received their economic impact payment. This is important because they can receive it as part of their tax refund now if they have not received it yet. They're also able to include $300 of charitable donations, even if they are not itemizing. This is looking pretty much the same. Anytime box has been marked yes, check for those forms. The one important exclusion to this is for number 5 here, refund of state and local income taxes. The only time someone has to provide that form for this question is if they are planning to itemize, which is very rare for our clients. For almost all of them, the standard deduction is the better option. So if they have marked that they got a refund last year, but they don't have that form, you really do not need to worry about it. All right, I think we have covered all this. If you review the documents and everything has been answered and every document is included and no documents are missing, you can submit it for prep. If you feel like you have absolutely no questions, you can just go ahead and submit it to the next person. If not, you're going to be calling the taxpayer, which will be the case more often than not. And this is just a quick overview. You know, if this is your first time, what tax forms look like, you're always going to find that a tax form has kind of the same format of gridded boxes, and it will always be labeled somewhere near the top with what it is. For example, SSA 1099 here, the 1099 DIV, or the 1098T. So that form name, always there. If it's the document that's listed on the intake form, there are no substitutions. If a taxpayer can't find this form, you can tag the intake lead or someone from the VITA team, and we'll give them directions on where to access it. Once you've gone through the intake and all the documents, you've kind of made your list of here's what I need to ask about, you call the taxpayer. Identify yourself and then begin asking your questions, just saying, you know, I've gone through your intake and I have a few questions before we start preparing it. If you determine that they need additional documents, we will let them know. And then if they uploaded everything themselves as a virtual return, then we will be able to send them a link where they can just upload anything else we need. If it is a scan and go return, they will be contacting the partner organization that they went to schedule another appointment to have the document scanned. So there's 2 different pathways based on how it's sent in, and you'll be able to see which path it took as you're working on it. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of practice, which I know you guys are excited about. So let's see here. I've got my quiz questions.
We're probably a small enough group to just do this in one room as opposed to breaking us up.
Agreed.
Unlike last time.
So this is an example intake, including everything that you would need to prepare a tax return. And I'm going to put it in the chat so you can open it, theoretically. And then I'm just going to drop a list of questions in as well. Actually, we can just leave these on the screen and talk about it. So this intake is maybe missing some things, or there might be some things you would want to talk to the taxpayer about. So I want you to open it up, take a few minutes to look at it, consider the questions on the screen here. We'll give you maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. You're definitely welcome to talk about it.
And Emma, you should change your screen window from the PowerPoint to the questions.
Oops, sorry.
Or,
It never works the way you want it to. There we go. All right, are we ready to go through this? All you professionals. All right, let's start with, is all taxpayer ID present? Tough crowd. What do we
Monica, I see you're shaking your head for the correct answer. So
Yes, no, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, some of the kids, I mean, hold on, one of the kids doesn't have. Correct?
Yeah, we are missing a child's ID card.
Jeremy.
Everybody else, you're
We're
on mute.
missing one.
There we
Yeah,
go.
Jeremy.
Anything else?
I keep losing my sheet.
Yeah, I keep,
Every-
yeah, me too. Which,
We're also giving you a technology challenge tonight.
so
There's no photo ID for anybody.
that's true.
Do all the documents match with what is marked on the intake?
I haven't finished.
All right, I'll give you guys some more time then. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't looked at all the documents yet.
Okay, I will leave you in peace.
Missing that. No photo ID. Okay, so Hannah W2. I'm all set if you're waiting for me.
We're just hanging.
Okay.
Are we feeling ready?
I'm all set.
All
I
right.
think so. I think so.
Don't worry, this is not a test. This is just practice. Do all the documents match with what's marked on the intake?
Do all the documents-
No,
No, there's one missing, I believe.
the interest income form that's provided is different than the note that they wrote. And I don't know if that was just because they forgot the one and had the other, but the interest is something you always want to ask them if they have any more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. They have included, and let me flip over to it so I actually have it on the screen. Scroll on down here. So there's two different things related to interest here. If I can get it on the screen. Yeah. So they have the,
A little higher.
oh Lord. Now I'm going down again. How do I can't do this anymore, guys. I have to go home. Yes, I am home. Here we go. All right, here we go. So they have written here on the side that they had $30 in interest earned on our savings account and that they forgot to bring the letter. But they also have marked yes for interest and dividends from checking, savings account, and bonds. So for this one, they included the 1099 forms. And then for this, they did not. Now for this one, and this is like a weird little thing. For the savings one, they don't necessarily have to have the letter. It's just interest that's accrued on a savings account. So sometimes people get letters for this and it'll be like 52 cents. We get a lot of those. We need to know how much it is, but if we don't have the actual letter, it's okay. But it's definitely one you would want to, go back and check out with them about, like Laura said. Are there any documents that are included that don't match up with the intake form?
Yes. The scholarships, the 1098T. I thought I saw one of those. And they have that marked no.
Did they?
Thought I saw one. Maybe I'm imagining it now.
There is a 1098T attached. But
Yeah.
I believe they mark yes, because that's going to be
Oh, there it is. College.
part 4, question 3.
Oh, because I thought it looked like it was a scholarship, not for their expenses that they noted.
Yeah.
So one of the things you can do with that one is, so they wrote the note in here, right, that they pay $3,800 for tuition. That scholarship, I believe, is for $11,200, and the total tuition is $15,000. So that $3,800 is the difference in there that they paid out of pocket in this scenario.
Uh-huh.
So you could double check, like, if there ever is a note like that, does that math line up? I mean, it's not a huge thing, but in this case it does. So
Yeah, it is interesting. They marked no on the scholarship up here, but then they
Right.
mark yes on the one lower.
Yeah. So, and sometimes it can be, something silly like that, where you're just checking with them and saying, you marked this down, but you included it or you didn't include it. Sure enough, here they got $11,200 worth of scholarships. So that's definitely something we would want to know about. And it's included, thankfully. So sometimes
Right, because you didn't know.
Yeah. Sometimes there's just a mismatch between the documents and what they say. So, you would record, I checked with them, they included a tuition statement. So this should actually be a yes. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to record those notes, but that way when the tax preparer looks at it, they know that you've already clarified with them. And then there's another thing that's included that does not show up on the intake form. Did anybody catch that one?
They had 1099R, and I just saw one, I believe. We have the payment pension securities, but what about the disability income?
Disability, yeah.
Let's see here. So we've got the 1099R
That's for pensions.
And then we have the SSA for Walter. I'm trying to remember who is disabled.
It's his spouse.
Yeah. So if you are receiving disability, it can come as either a SSA 1099 or as a as a 1099R. And so the reason, so hers is on a 1099-R, so that's fine. It doesn't have to be a Social Security disability.
Okay.
And I cannot remember why. Sometimes you get one, sometimes you get the other. I believe it is, so, oh, I know what it is. One of them is federal disability, so you qualify for disability. And then the 1099-R is if you got disability through your job, like you had a disability plan and you had an accident and then you qualify. And so it's actually your old employer is paying it, not the federal government.
Okay.
The other thing was the daycare or the childcare expense. They didn't mark that at all, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah, and so, just checking with them and saying, hey, you included this document, but you didn't mark it.
Or they marked unsure, I guess, what they marked it as.
So, checking with them, maybe it's that, so maybe they're super smart about taxes. You can only claim that credit if the childcare expenses are so you could work or look for work. So maybe they were like, I don't know, I didn't work, but I was, I was trying to find work. Or it was part of the year, whatever. So just, checking in with them, why did you mark unsure? And then you can just keep, write those notes down for the next person.
And their reason could also be the opposite. They could be like, there's no way that childcare expenses should save me money on taxes. Like, that's weird. I've never heard of that. But the key thing is if you see an unsure, kind of clarifying why. And there is one thing on this Michigan intake form as well, the very first one.
Oh, they don't have their heating amount.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon for people because they don't know what it is. And so that we're actually okay without. And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure I talked to intake people about. So if they don't include their heating amount, this credit calculates automatically. So if there's a 0 here, it's okay. And we'll provide some guidance to our intake folks about that. If someone has really high heat costs, it can be worth them providing it to us. But sometimes it's hard to find because each company does it a little differently.
I think what I would say, there is one more thing on this intake form for question 6, the third part, where talking about vehicle insurance, or number of vehicles insured. Either or is fine. Again, I think in this case, since you're calling them anyway, like Laura, in this case, I personally would ask about the heat bill because, you've got 3 other questions, right? That one should be pretty quick. And if it is, if they're paying a lot for heating, you can save them more on that credit. But I think if you had an otherwise perfect return, I probably wouldn't call just for not the heat bill, if that makes sense.
All righty. Good job, guys. It's like you've done this before. All right, if you guys need a break, you're welcome to go get some water, whatever, and come back. If you want to keep going, we can just keep going.
I don't need a break.
All right.
Anyway, won't speak for everyone.
You guys are a small crowd, so this goes a little faster.
Yeah. And we can, I guess we'll just get to the next part of the presentation, Emma, whenever you want to flip windows again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the thing. Yeah, I know.
I'm sharing the wrong thing again.
I know. It's just an extra step.
How's that?
No.
Is it showing?
Well, it is perfect. I'm just, that well is giving me 10 seconds to pull up my own notes. Okay, we're good. All right, so what we're going to do for this back end of the training is we're going to talk a little bit about the actual software we're going to be utilizing to prepare returns. So we'll and that's Zendesk, by the way. So I'll talk a little bit about what Zendesk is. We'll look at some static images, and we're going to kind of finish up by kind of doing a live sort of click through and looking at some things in Zendesk that Emma will take us through. I do also want to mention we are hosting 2 separate Zendesk trainings, the first of which is this Thursday, January 14th in the morning. The next one will be Tuesday, January 19th in the evening at this time. We're going to be recording one of those as well. And we're also we've kind of picked out some times over the next few weeks to have what we're calling some drop-in hours for the VITA team, where we're more than happy to kind of answer questions about this. Why I'm saying all that, you are not expected to be a Zendesk expert, within the next 45 minutes. So, but it is something that is really vital to this process. So we figure we want to introduce it and go through it a handful of times. So with that out of the way, Zendesk, what is it? Well, literally a ticket management system. And in our case, every single tax return is going to be a Zendesk ticket. Every ticket is going to move through what's known as views that kind of show us where in the process a return is. So if we're looking over in that, picture on the right-hand side, right, these are some of the views you would see. So the most important one for our intake team is going to be that second one, initial submission. These are going to be uploads either coming from a taxpayer using virtual VITA or from one of our scan and go sites. We'll take a look at what both those look like because they do come in a little bit differently. But you can see in this example, there would be 9 initial submissions, so probably some intake needing to be done. When things come in, volunteers are going to be assigned tickets. We kind of have this set up where we can have this sort of run automatically throughout the week. You're going to get an email notification whenever a ticket's assigned to you, or whenever another user in Zendesk tags you on something. We'll take a look at how that appears and what that can mean in just a second. You're going to have a home screen that's going to show you every ticket that's assigned to you, as well as if there have been recent changes to a ticket, if you've been tagged on something. And again, this views window is just going to show you everything, so where it is in the process. So your home screen would be useful. If you see in that middle picture, that kind of like floppy disk icon is going to take you to the views. That home icon is going to take you to your home page. Home is most useful if you're working on 2 different intakes and you want to get to one of them really quickly. That's great. Views is if maybe you worked through all the things that were assigned to you and you want to make sure and see if there's some other tickets that either there's something an issue or help needed. Maybe you're working on intake, prep, and QR this week, so maybe you want to see what your workload looks like in all of those, which I hope no one is doing, at least at the start. But it's just kind of 2 different ways to look at things. Okay, so speaking of views, so as you see again right over here on the left, again, you can see we're kind of in the view screen, right? So in this case, we're in the ready for prep one. Not super important. What is important is that you'll notice up here in the top of this image, you have multiple tabs open. So you can, like I said, kind of be working or viewing multiple tickets at one time. You'll see here they each have a name. So this fake ticket is Bob Buchanan, and it also has a number 205 right there. And then in the second actual ticket, which is kind of like the email envelope looking icon, again, fake name Walter Rivers, but that's ticket number 212. So those would be kind of what someone has open, and that added just let you open a new tab, whether you want to search for something like in that second one, whatever you want to do over there. When we're kind of looking at what's within this view, so I mentioned we clicked on ready for prep over here from view, and you'll see there's 3 tickets in here. So we can see what dates they kind of came in, sort of by what came earliest. In this requester tab, this is going to be the email address of the person who actually, who submitted the return. So in this case, you'll see Emma just doing some examples. Assignee, right, going to be the person this is assigned to. Once again, Emma, just in all these examples. And over here in the subject title, we should see the taxpayer's name. So in these bottom 2 kind of demo tickets, right, we see Bob and a bunch of numbers, and then we see fake person Walter Rivers. So there are a few kind of key things you can sort of look for when you're looking at kind of how tickets are organized and what info you can see right away. All right, so say we're looking at just 1 ticket. So we're in that fake Walter Rivers one, right? So I do want to mention first off, over kind of here in this bottom left corner-ish area right above the phone number, we have this return status with an asterisk next to it. So in this case, this ticket is listed as ready for preparation. So every ticket in Zendesk is going to have some sort of status. This is how we know exactly where it is in the process. So essentially, intake volunteers are going to move tickets into ready for preparation once intake's complete. So things would come in as an initial submission. Once everything's reviewed, if it looks good, you would change that status to ready for prep. As we kind of look in the middle of this picture over here, I do want to mention we have 2 actual channels to communicate with within Zendesk. The first one, public reply. that's going to send an email right to the taxpayer. So if you remember from the previous slide, right, this is how Emma's email address appeared in here. So this would be going out to the actual taxpayer if this was a virtual VITA client. So those are going to be used for a few specific things we'll talk about in a second. What might be a little more useful will be internal notes, which are only going to be visible to us. So volunteers, staff, the VITA team, everyone working. And I think it's either the next slide or one after where we'll kind of see what those look like. Here we go. Okay. So in the previous slide, the text box was white. That's because it was clicked on public reply. When you click on internal note, that text box is going to have a yellow background, which is going to be, another way that you can tell. And yeah, internal note will be underlined and bolded, but also the box turns yellow, which for me is the easy way to tell what's happening. I mentioned tagging is something that you'll get notified when it happens. So for an internal note, you can tag another volunteer, just type the @ symbol, and then you can either start to type their name. So here, since there's only so many of us in Zendesk at the moment, Jay immediately brings up Julia's name. You can also see their email address right down there. Whether you start typing someone's name or email address, Zendesk will try to autocomplete either way, so it doesn't really matter. Whatever way you remember to reach out to people, it should kind of autofill there. Once you click on that, so in this case, you click on Julia's name there, then it's just going to be a bold version of their name right there, and then you can write your actual note. So in this case, Julia, can you please review this submission and tell me whether or not the taxpayer needs to provide a 1099-G? In kind of the bottom right of like a ticket window, there's going to be this submit as open button. There's a couple different options, whether it says open or pending, doesn't really matter. Hitting that is going to save changes you made to the ticket. So in this case, it's going to actually send that internal note through. Okay, one other thing, macros, which I really love, and there's two really useful ones. So what these are, they're preset messages that can be sent to clients. So macros are going to appear kind of in like the bottom left of the ticket window. There's two that the intake team are really going to be using. The first, additional documents or info needed. So as Bob pointed out, more than likely, people are going to forget documentation. There'll be things we need to chase down, and this is going to be a big part of the intake process. This is just going to be like a pre-filled message that goes out to the taxpayer where you can add in some questions, list out some documents. If someone did something really basic, like forgetting a W-2, this is kind of a pretty simple ask, right? If there's some more complicated questions, you could still write them out. You could try to like schedule a time to call with them. There's you can essentially write in, your own stuff, but the pre-filled message is going to save you a little bit of time on that. We also do want to mention the macro for client issue or help needed. This is going to be an internal one. This will go right to our VITA team. So, Emma, myself, Julia, Bob, lead volunteers, which is just going to be, you can leave a little note about a really complicated tax return. Maybe there's a 1099K in here, right? Something that we definitely need to double check or ask. For an example, that's just going to let us know that you need assistance with something. Okay, so for example, this is the additional documents requested macro. So it's going to say hello, and then it's going to autofill their name at the top. And then just gives us a little message. We're requesting the following additional documents and or info in order to complete your return. Please reply and upload to this email. Once we've received the needed information, we'll prepare your return. That's please send the following documents: W-2, 1098-T, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Please answer the following questions. Like in the previous example, right? Were your childcare expenses so that you could either work or look for work, right? Pursuing employment. It also sends them this little job form link that they can use to actually upload any of the documents. It also has a text box where they can give short answers to the questions. And then again, just let them know if they have any questions. And then it's going to be automatically signed by you, the person assigned to it, assigned to the ticket, and then the VITA team. So just the only things you need to add are the specific instances, but we wanted to save some time. Then you can just hit submit when this is ready and send it out. Okay, so say you send that out, you need some documents from someone. When a taxpayer uses that link to upload the documents you need, they're going to come into Zendesk with this label, 2020 VITA additional document upload hyphen taxpayer name. So in this case, right, we can see it directly underneath. So we had that ticket for Walter Rivers coming in later, 2020 document upload, blah, 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 hyphen Walter Rivers. So that's kind of how we can pick that out. How to actually add that info into the ticket is going to be through a process called merging, which how that's going to work is just open up your new ticket, right? There's going to be a tiny down arrow, which you can kind of see up in the top right of the actual kind of like ticket tab window. We'll look at it live as well. There's going to be an option that you can just select to merge into another ticket. You're going to want to type in that number, which again, you can see the numbers in your ticket tabs. So hopefully you've only got 2 or 3 open. You can kind of see what you need to. Then you just have that big black merge button, and then those. So then ticket 217 is going to disappear. And in this case, 212 is going to have all the documents that just got uploaded and should be correct and ready to go. All right, so Scan and Go. So once again, just a reminder, taxpayer goes through the Scan and Go organization with all their documents and intake forms filled out correctly, fingers crossed. Our Scan and Go partner is going to scan everything in and submit them through a secure portal. Documents get handed back to the taxpayer and they go. So this is kind of the Scan and Go. This is the Scan and Go upload form, right? So you'll be able to see the partner organization that's coming from, in this case, Housing Bureau for Seniors. There'll be an email attached to it for the actual Scan and Go partner you're interacting with. They get taxpayer's name and phone number, and if they had any concerns, questions, whatever. And then the document you can see attached at the bottom, which is, for last name Lake for this taxpayer, fake taxpayer .pdf. What's going to look like once it's in Zendesk? It's going to be labeled right at the top in bright orange, VITA Scan and Go Partner Portal, just so we can be really clear that this is Scan and Go. In this case, anything sent on the public reply, it's not going to go to the taxpayer, right? It's going to go to our Scan and Go partner. So for example, this one is saying to Matt at Housing Bureau for Seniors. Also, one thing to note, everything that's going to be uploaded through the Scan and Go partner, it's just going to come in as one big document, kind of like that one we looked at in the practice example right before this. So it's just like a 14 whatever page PDF. So that's how it's going to appear when it comes through this portal.
Minus one edit we made, which doesn't really affect anybody, but we're going to have you upload the intake form and then all the documents separately, because we have to download and keep all the intake forms. And that will make it, we won't have to pull them out of every single upload at the end of season, which will make us really sad.
Yeah, so you'll basically have like one PDF for our Michigan intake and federal intake, and then one PDF with, all the social security cards, photo ID, all those additional documentation, right? So
that was a change we made like yesterday, so catch up on those.
Okay, so speaking of virtual VITA, so they're just going to go through a secure jot form portal. Once again, taxpayer is going to fill it out themselves online. The link to this form is going to get sent to them depending on, when they schedule an appointment. So if they schedule for February 8th, I believe they're going to get this link February 7th. And then from then, they're going to have essentially a full week if they want to upload this stuff. Now, hopefully they just upload it and then we have it. But to kind of give them some flexibility there. The form they're going to go through collects all of the info that would be on the 13614C, as well as it asks them for all associated documents. So, if they mention, if they click a box about whether they were employed at all right during the year, if they say yes, the form asks them for a W-2. If the form will ask them how many dependents do you have. If they say 2, then it's going to ask for the information for both dependents as well as social security cards. So it's meant to really guide them through this process, but it's possible some things may get missed. So what that'll look like when it comes in. Yeah, so we'll see right here, right? So initially it asks for, in this case, they're they check the box that they're married, right? So it's asking for a photo of their spouse's driver's license and the spouse's social security card. And there's a little note, right, about social security card, again, not required if they have an SSA 1099, which we mentioned is acceptable. You'll see in that second window, right, people you lived with or supported. So this is basically asking for dependents. They say 1, it gives them that drop down for, again, person 1 information, name, date of birth, what's their relationship, all these things that would show up on the physical intake form. And then as well, it asks for the same kind of like, it asks for a social security card for them. There's no photo IDs required for dependents. Okay, what this looks like in Zendesk. So it's going to show their name and email address. So you get the, in this case, fake Walter Rivers, right? And then you see all just a bunch of Emma info in there as well. Any public message, again, is going to go directly to the email they use to upload this. Emma, your cat is hilarious, by the way.
You're welcome.
All the documents in the intake form are going to be individual uploads, right? So we see here, we have 3 social security card files, 2 driver's license files, a W-2, multiple different 1099s, 1098s, and then you have the actual, 4-page intake form. So it's all the same info. It's just whether or not it's going to be, 2 attachments or up to 20, hopefully not quite that big. I think we're anticipating things there. This would even be like a fairly large, amount of documents coming in. I think we're expecting maybe we could save a form here or there, but this is kind of what it will look like as you go in. Okay, and I think Emma, if you're prepared, there's only a little bit left.
Let me put this cat back on the ground. He says it's time for us to be cuddling, so he's very bossy. So when you're doing this call, you're reviewing all the documents, you're calling the taxpayer, all that good stuff. You want to leave notes in Zendesk so that the next person who looks at it knows what you've already talked about with the taxpayer. So when you're doing that, a couple of formatting notes, you want to date each entry. You want to split the notes into federal and Michigan sections. So we're just thinking about who's next in this chain, making it easy for them. And then note the number from the intake form for each question answered. So in the example here, I spoke with Robert, federal notes. He marked unsure on question 4. I asked him some additional questions to determine his only income is retirement, no stocks or bonds, can be changed to no. Question 15, he marked yes for additional income, but it was a $100 gift, falling under the $300 limit. Michigan, no additional notes. So just really nice and straightforward for whoever's going to prepare this return. And then if somebody else talks to him, they'll put their notes in. And it's really, that's the thing we really love about Zendesk is that all this is tracked. When we use the Scan and Go database, it was much harder to figure out like who came before us, what did they do, what did they already figure out, like what's all the info. It is all right here, and it makes this much easier, thankfully. So you want to update this ticket. You record your answers as we talked about. Change the status of the ticket if it is ready for prep, and the tax preparer will automatically be assigned by the system. If the taxpayer didn't answer your call, just leave a note saying when you called. So, if you look at it after 3 days, or if I look at it, it's been sitting there a week and I can see that, the taxpayer has been called 3 times and hasn't answered, we can maybe escalate up the chain to where I'm leaving them a last call and saying, if we don't hear from you, X, Y, and Z. So just making sure that we know what's going on. And then always clicking that submit button. No matter what you do on the ticket, if you change anything on the ticket, click that submit button to save your changes. And let's go look at Zendesk real quick. On one of my many tabs. Okay, cat. Thank you for your input. All right, to log into the database, you can always, database is fine, software, whatever you want to call it. You can always go to our website and it'll be linked on there. You can always bookmark it to your computer too once you get started. And this will get reorganized shortly and it will be in a more organized fashion, thanks to Julia. So you click on the Zendesk database login. Come on, buddy.
If you're wondering why I've been here with my camera off, it's because I've been working on this.
Oh, that's not my password. Oh no. Anyone want a cat? It's very snuggly. Okay, so this is what you see when you log in. It always takes you straight to your home screen. And this will show you a couple of handy things. One, if there's been any updates to any of the tickets you're working on. So here, the taxpayer has consented to tax filing. And then also all the returns that are currently assigned to you. And you can see, where they're kind of at in the process. Everything's pretty much assigned to me and Patrick because we're hanging out here. So then you go down to views, and it will always take a minute to load, but then it'll show you how many returns there are in different views. So you can look in ready for prep, you can look in prep in progress. Normally intake volunteers, you'll pretty much be working from initial submission 100% of the time, but this is all kind of the same for this moment in time. Returns will be organized based on how long they've been sitting there, with the oldest ones at the top, because we want to serve those people first and make sure that they get taken care of. So if we click into one of these tickets, as Patrick showed, let me move you guys around. There we go. Right over here, there's a little drop-down button to merge into another ticket if you needed to. There's the email of the person who submitted this one, public reply, internal note. You can also call with Zendesk, but we're not really going to use that feature. And then as you scroll down, you can see what's going on here. So Patrick has tagged me on this return, telling me he needs help for whatever reason. And then the jot form down here. You'll see the whole thing filled out, but you can also just click on and open these, and they'll also be attached at the bottom, except not on this one because we're fixing a little situation, but I'll show you one where they are on there. And so if I was working on this and maybe I was doing the intake, I would mark it as ready for prep, put in their phone number, their email address, and this is just for us. And I click that submit button. And so then you'll see it hangs out for a minute, and then it moves over to the ready for prep. So it's just, it just shuffles them around based on whatever you change on that status. Super cool. Okay, let's see if I can find one here that has all the documents at the bottom. Yep, this one's just memes that Julia uploaded, I think, or I uploaded, who knows. It shows all the text. This is not the one I wanted. Get out of here.
These are Patrick's memes.
Patrick's memes? Sorry.
Those are the same two I've had saved since September. Whenever I need to upload a test image to something.
Yeah. These are Julia's memes. So this is an example of how a scan and go one would show up. It would just have this really short form here, and then anything that they uploaded down here. In this case, a cat meme. So you'll just always be able to view everything. Normally you'd have your intake document and stuff here as well. Any questions on this? Any things you want to see more detail about? Silence. All right, I like it. Just looking
I
for.
do want to say that the reason there was a cat on a couch is because I uploaded this test submission when Emma got a new couch.
It was a very exciting day, so that would make sense. Here we go. This one, it's got all the documents attached. I bet this one's going to be broken too. Yeah, we need to fix this. But normally at the bottom, like we showed in the training, you would have just where you can click and open the intake form and then all the text documents. We're just, in here breaking stuff occasionally. All right. I think that is we are almost done. Let's wrap this boy up and get out of here for the day. We're planning to activate everybody's Zendesk on January 20th because your licenses are by month. And so that will get us from January 20th through to April 20th, 5 days after the end of the filing season, to kind of give us time to wrap up whatever's going on in there, finish up late taxpayer issues, just have, a little bit of leeway on that end. So you'll have 10 days before we actually start where, if you want to get in and take a look at it, you can. It'll be cleaned out by then from all of our trial junk and ready to help. Last notes are on resources and certification path. I won't spend much time on this because Laura's already certified, and Monica, I know you know how to do this. So this is really just going to be sent out to you as a document, a PDF document, which both of you have also probably received. Just make sure you're working through all the steps to be certified by the end of February. You guys know how to do this. A reminder, the volunteer standards of conduct. Don't take things that are really sketchy or dishonest or, you know, criminal. Don't accept payment or donations for your returns. Don't use TaxPayer outside of clinic. We try to remind people of that one very strongly. You know, just because you have access to the software, any return done on it has to be done through the VITA program. If you want to help someone else do their taxes, you could go to My Free Taxes with them. You could find another free prep option, but don't use TaxPayer. You can refer them to the, you know, they can make a VITA appointment. And if they go through the VITA program and make an appointment, then they can have their taxes prepared by us. Upload your certification. Oh, go ahead.
No, finish, please. I have a question at the end.
Okay, I was just going to say this is just showing how to upload your certificate when you're done. You will click that you agree to it on Link and Learn once you've taken the exams. You will then click here to download a PDF of it. And then on our website on the volunteer page, there will be a spot for you to upload it to us. And that's required before you start volunteering.
So I believe I don't have an account on Zendesk, right?
That's correct.
Right now, correct? So where should I go, or just there to the link and create an account?
Yeah, so that's the one where we will get all of the accounts set up around the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we do that, what we'll do is we'll email you. You'll get like a link from Zendesk, and it'll say like click here to create your account, and then you'll create.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. These are the video modules for intake. They're also linked on our website, so you can watch them anytime. And then if you feel like you need to review, this is the list of the IRS documents for the standards of conduct in the intake exit exams. If you've done VITA for a couple of years, I think you could pass. This training is being recorded, or it was originally. I'm not sure if it still is suddenly.
It is. Yeah, we're still, although we're probably at the point where we can probably start to finish up recording, but.
So it'll be up on our website if you want to go back and look at anything. We'll also be providing you with a full intake PDF guide once we finalize a few things. And you will also be emailed so that if you want to schedule a one-on-one Zendesk kind of run through with somebody, we'll have the option to do that at the end of the month to just get a little bit of hands-on practice.
And to be clear, they're opening up kind of next week once the second Zendesk train is over. So hopefully everyone will have seen a little bit, so no one's just gonna, come in blind. And also once we, are able to email you and get accounts set up.
Yeah. So we're finalizing a few things, building the boat as we sail it, as I was saying earlier this morning, because everything's new this year and it's great. We're, entertaining.
Emma, you had mentioned something about like a security agreement in an email, and then tonight you referenced a security document. Is that the same thing, or is there like an individual security agreement and a site security agreement?
Yes, you are thinking of the site security agreement that I emailed to you, which is for the IRS. And then there's the individual security agreement that all the volunteers signed, which is also required by the IRS, but it goes to them. And then we just have to show it if they ever ask us.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was like knowing what I needed to prepare. But is that form for the individual something that we have access to now, or is that something you will send us?
We will send it out. I want to make a couple more updates to it based on their policies, but it'll be like a thing where you'll read through and like you'll initial like, yes, I agree to this. Yes, I agree to this. And then you'll actually sign it at the end.
Okay. That sounds fine.
Any other intake questions? All right. Well, we will see both of you for more trainings in the coming days and as the tax season.
Yeah. So what additional things will be on the Scan and Go one tomorrow?
The Scan and Go one is a little bit different. It also includes like follow-up, like signature appointments. I'm just gonna open it real quick and look because my brain is empty. There's some notes on economic impact payments and rebate credits. But other than that, it is, very much, Laura, you've done this for like 5 or 6 years.
I know, but especially because of like the economic stimulus payments, and that we know we're gonna have a lot of folks dealing with those, as well as unemployment benefits last year. So that's why I wanted to know. I'll probably still tune in. Like I said, I may not be quite as engaged, but there's probably some additional information that would be worthwhile to review at least.
Sure.
Yeah, I do. And funnily enough, I think also kind of what we were, what Bob brought up at the start of this training, which is really important, is probably going to be a bigger focal point of some of our discussion in the Scan and Go training, right? Because that's going to be much more on those folks as opposed to, which thankfully you were here to give a great example of, what the plan can be to really work with.
Right.
But that's going to be much more of a focus for that group as opposed to,
Okay.
just some of the more general intake volunteers.
Okay. And you said right now that's just our site and then SOS Community Services and Housing Bureau for Seniors?
It's actually changed a little bit. It's Housing Bureau for Seniors, but with some conditions we're still trying to work out. Aid in Milan.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the Ipsy Public Library is in, but
Oh, excellent.
But SOS is out. So we have
Oh.
one in Ipsy. I know.
Darn.
So we're still trying to find one more location in Ipsy. One of our coworkers is reaching out to a lot of the churches in the area because that's that's the area we want to serve the most. But it's also, it seems to be where our Scan and Go partners are struggling the most because they're, just to have safety and for their.
Yeah, a lot of churches are still closed. So, okay. Well, I'm glad that Aid in Milan is on board. And then this is not related, but for the AARP sites, are those going to be through mostly the senior centers around Washtenaw County?
I think senior centers and also the library. The library is working right now to get approval for both of us. And so if they get approved for one, they'll be approved for both. So about that soon.
All right. And then, so at one point, we used to get like a list of all the sites, VITA and AARP.
Yeah, the Washtenaw County Taxpayer.
Yeah, is that going to be available?
Thank you for reminding me about that. I will write that down in my notebook.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and not just for, our agency, but we usually share that with the Barrier Busters group.
Yeah.
And then that way people know where to refer folks to.
Yeah,
if we can get our list finalized, I think we keep, our list this week is obviously different than last week, and I'm sure there's going to be some more changes before Monday next week. Hopefully not.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Hopefully good changes. We're just adding a site or two.
Adding to, yeah.
But,
all right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any questions from you, Monica?
Oh, I think I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening, and we'll see you all later.
You too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.